and welcome to the channel. What's the intention of this video? Well, I want to tell you viewers that this bike here is worth your consideration if you're looking for a naked sport touring bike. Not new, this is a 2008. Stick around if you want to know more about this bike, which is an Italian bike. It's the Aprilia SL750, also called a Shiver. Aprilia themselves were founded in 1945, right after the Second World War, and they made a name for themselves in the early 80s and 90s with motocross sports and then road racing. And they've continued to do road racing to this day. They compete, their motorcycles compete in the MotoGP. In 2004, Piaggio, the same brand that owns Moto Guzzi and Vespa, purchased Aprilia. And 4 years after that, this bike was born, a 750cc water-cooled V-twin sport touring bike, as you see here. There was also a twin bike known as the Dorsadora, very similar frame, but set up as an enduro. So if this isn't your style, maybe take a look at the enduro. So let's get some details on this bike. I've got some things written down here. Engine, when new, 95 horsepower. 59 foot-pounds of torque. It's a 6-speed manual and was the first production bike with a ride-by-wire throttle. It means it's got 3 throttle maps: sport, touring and rain, which means you can change the bike to set it up the way that you want it. That's something that you won't find with some of the other competitors from this era if you're looking at a used bike. The frame, steel and aluminum trellis, all bolted together with a aluminium swing arm. I think their intention here was to make a light bike, but this bike is actually pretty heavy. It's 445 pounds wet, dry, probably closer to 500 pounds with all the fluids added. And you feel it when you're pushing it around in the garage, but once you're on the bike and you're riding, it's actually pretty light, pretty nimble. Brakes on this, twin brakes, a twin disc up front, 320mm, 4-pot radial calipers, a single 255mm disc at the back, stainless steel hoses, which is pretty cool for a standard, relatively inexpensive sport bike. And to be honest, I think the brakes are great. I've never had any complaints with them. 17-inch wheels, front and back, tubeless tyres, kind of what you'd expect on a bike. It's got wide handlebars. It's got a 31.6-inch seat height, which is very approachable for most people. I'm 6'2". I find the bike really comfortable. I find the position for the pegs and the levers and the controls to be great. The only thing probably is a minor disappointment is that it does have this ridge in the seat, which gives you something to put your back against, but it does limit your ability to move around if you're starting to get a little bit uncomfortable. So for me, an hour and a half, I tend to take a stop and have a walk around, exercise my legs, and then get back on the bike again. Now, this is probably a sport touring motorcycle, but I think it's just at home as a commuter, and actually I use it as a commuter for my work trip, and I think it's great. Put on a backpack, and it's an easy, nice bike to ride to work. Now let's hear it run, shall we? It does have these rather cool exhausts here in terms of the seat, which you either like it or you hate it. On the road, those three modes let you dial in, kind of drive you on. Sport is the most responsive. You touch the throttle and you feel the bike pull away. In touring mode, it's a little bit more subdued. And rain, the throttle is definitely very subdued. And I think, but I could be wrong, that maybe the power is also reduced. But you certainly have 3 very distinctive styles of riding when you pick those modes. So what are the cons for this bike? I've told you all the great things. What are the cons? Probably the biggest one, no fuel gauge. You have to rely on the odometer to keep track of the miles. The fuel consumption is not great, 40 miles per gallon, US gallons. But this is a fun bike. Who cares about the price of gas, right? So the lack of fuel gauge, needing to keep an eye on the fuel and top it up when the light comes on, probably the one thing I would say. Seat can get a little bit uncomfortable, like I said, at least for me, after an hour, hour and a half. Other people may be different, and of course you could always buy a third-party custom seat if you wanted to. And although I've not had any, being an Italian bike, there's perhaps a reputation for electrical gremlins, but I've not had any. This bike's been great for me. I've had no problems with it whatsoever, so something to be mindful of. What are the competitors for this? I came up with two. Suzuki SV650, been around since the late 1990s, also a V-twin. It's Suzuki, it's going to be bulletproof. Not quite as powerful as this, a little bit less engine power, but very similar frame size, chassis size, and I would imagine being this is lighter, probably just as much fun to ride. The other one would be the Triumph Street Triple. It's got more power than this bike, again similar size, probably a little bit more expensive. Two bikes I would suggest if you're looking at something like this that you might want to look for as well to test out. So with all that said, hopefully I've given you some compelling information as to why you might like this bike, or at least put it on your short list. There's plenty of them around used. I'm based in the United States. You see them pop up on Facebook and other online marketplaces from time to time. That's how I got this one. Talk to the owners, make sure that they've done the service, make sure that they've got some history. Take it for a test ride and see if it's what suits you. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and good luck with your riding.